introduce Kenton Dobrowolski. He is a multi-instrument, and this is going to be a tongue twister, multi-instrumentalist and music producer. So basically, he takes sounds and bring them to life and in context. He helps you establish your own unique sound. So for branding purposes, and that's quintessential. There's many a time we would have heard a jingle somewhere, and that's the art form itself. He's from out west, and he's dyslexic. So other than that, and he's also charming and he's witty. And I'm going to stop there. Kenton, over to you, sir.
Thank you for the introduction. It's so awesome to be here, guys. It was awesome to get to know a little bit about each of you as well. And yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything during, raise the hand. I'm on my phone here, so I can give off my beautiful real background in my studio as well. So if anyone, Bernie or Margaret, if anyone raises their hand, maybe just kind of let me know. But yeah, we'll get right into it. So audio branding. Most brands know the importance of visual branding, things like that. When a company, starts, they usually go and make their logo, decide on their colors, decide on which text fonts and stuff best represent them. And so audio branding is very similar, except we take sounds and we create a sonic palette for a company. And so this comes in the form of jingles, intro and outro music for podcasts, shorter sound bits, I call them. Like if anyone's familiar with when Netflix turns on now, there's that little 2-second drum sound, that thump thump, but now it's kind of iconic. But that took a lot of time and effort to build that, even though it's super simple, and a lot of experimentation. And so audio branding is really valuable for companies because even more so than visual, or when used with visuals, it establishes a deep emotional connection with your audience and who you're serving. Also, it can create an authority over time when they hear you, a familiarity that can kind of get stuck in their head, whether they like it or not, but good for you when they need a service and they think of you first. And so the other thing that it does for a brand, aside from the value of having custom music that, helps you stick out in such a saturated digital market, is the actual process of creating itself. A lot of the time, the first step is always experimentation. And so this is, to me, the funnest part, because it requires the business owner, entrepreneur to get very vulnerable and get back down to the basics of what made them want to start their business, and asking them questions like, what genre would you say best defines your brand? Or what style do you hear when you close your eyes and think of your commercial and music's playing? These actually in turn make somebody think about what made them start in the first place. Who are they trying to serve? What problem are they solving? And when you're able to get that across in a message as strong as music, it's very, very powerful. So get to my little notes here. Yeah, so back to the creation process. And I want to just, all of you guys here, close your eyes for a sec. So I want to hear from you guys about this, because I'm curious, and this helps me as well. When you think of your brand and what you're doing, maybe there's a commercial happening that's showcasing you in the process. You're working with a client, you're bringing their project to life. What does that sound like for you? What instruments do you hear? Is it, a band of a song that you already know and love that best represents it? Or is it something completely custom and just a cool sound that's designed just for that? And then what emotions are you trying to evoke when you first come across a potential client or customer? If am I saying that right? It sounds like, so if you have a gym and stuff like that, maybe like if you're trying to track someone, it sounds like I'm obviously assuming that you guys listen to kind of upbeat music when you're working out and doing things.
I have a very big ass speaker, because they love it. So because in Canada, the only difference between my country and this country is here everybody have their own music, and back home everybody listens to one common music, which is the bang bang speaker in the gym. So that's the big difference. So when people come to this place and they feel different about the environment, that's what they like. So you're right.
I love that. And that actually touches on just the connectedness that music provides. You know, when you're doing a group activity or something, and everyone's listening to different music, everyone's kind of riding a different wavelength, kind of in a different zone. But when everybody's listening to the same thing and feeling that same energy, that is such a powerful thing. And it brings a connectedness to people. And, you know, music is a universal language. And so what I really love about it as well is you can evoke an emotion or connection with someone that doesn't even speak the language that you speak. Because there's so many
like a nightclub, you know, it's the same music. People are jumping like chimpanzees over there. Or secondly, the Despacito song, which has 7 billion views. Goddamn, half of the world doesn't even know Spanish. How the hell that song has 7 billion views on YouTube when 80% of the population doesn't even know what Louis Fonsi is talking about or saying? It's just the tune, it's just the rhythm, it's just the song.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. It's that they did a good job at picking the progression of the chords and stuff that make that song. And what's cool is like, no one, like, music industry is crazy for legalities and stuff like that. And it's hard, like you see this all the time, even with the presidential campaigns and people like using music without asking. It becomes a huge issue. Instagram and TikTok kind of started solving this problem a little bit, because if you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you make a video, you can add music to it. You can go search from a library of music and pick a song that's a popular song if it's on there and use it, because Instagram, TikTok have made deals with all the distributors and all the labels and things like that. But what you can't do is go and monetize a podcast on Spotify or monetize a YouTube video or run really paid ads on your own video and embed that music yourself without going through a crazy amount of legalities, getting licensing, and probably paying more money than it's worth. But what you can do is you can take a similar chord progression. You can go and find out what makes that song what it is. What is it about that song that's evoking the emotion that I want for my video or my brand? And usually when you dissect that, that comes in what the rhythm is. So the BPM, how fast is the song? What does it feel like in terms of how you would dance to it? And then the melody, what are the chord progressions? What, you know, and usually most popular songs are 4 chords, just 4 chords repeating. And so you can apply those progressions and those melodies into your own advertising videos with different instruments and stuff without ripping off the music and doing it your own way. And then it becomes completely custom. And the other cool thing about that is then you can monetize it if you so choose, and you can easily put it onto YouTube, put it onto Spotify, put it advertising campaigns behind it and things like that, and not have an issue. And like, the other thing is you can get music from royalty-free sites. That's the other big thing that people use and stuff when they're making videos, is they can go to a massive catalog of music. It's free to use. You pay a monthly subscription and you can go and choose whatever music you want. A lot of time there are tons of different styles and something almost for everyone on there. The only issue you run into is it's not completely custom. And at some point, someone will have heard that before with a different brand or with a different video. And so when you take the time to actually create something from scratch and just for your company, the client knows, like, they know that attention to detail. And when visuals and audio line up, especially when you use audio with visuals, and there's a key moment that happens in your marketing video where you want to establish, like, this is the moment that I want them to feel the most happy at, or this is the moment that I want to sell that product. And there's that little glimmer on whatever the product is or whatever, it's cheesy like that, you know. And then there's, you know, a special sound that happens right at that moment. And that's where, you know, sound effects and sound design come in cool, because it's not just music, and it's also very, very fluid in the sense of, you know, when you listen to a really good marketing video or really good podcast, there's music that comes in, then the music dims down and there's talking, and the talking sounds really crispy and clean. And Ahmet, I got mad respect to you as a sound engineer, because those are the heroes. Those are the saving graces for me as a producer, where at the end of having something that we like musically, it gets sent off to the engineer, and they work their magic on not only musical components, but also talking, and make it sound super crispy, clean, and on top, which is super important for getting your message across. Is not only, you know, what it sounds like, but how good it sounds and the quality of it.
Kenton, got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the music and you say close your mind and visualize, you know, your business to a beat that you think would jive well, not only for you but also for your client base. How do you associate then colors and images and shapes that would also shape in there? How do you kind of all tie that as one package?
Yeah. For me, my mind works in mysterious ways. I guess all of ours do. But I really like have associate different sounds with different colors and stuff like that. So right off the bat, if a brand already has their visual identity and their look and style, for me, I can sometimes start interpreting that as different sounds and different styles of music. But then also when I get to hear what comes to their mind, it's sometimes funny because sometimes what they hear and say is completely what I wouldn't expect. To me, that doesn't go with the brand at all. But again, it's not my brand. So that's where I really start to dig deep and find out what is the entrepreneur, the business owner really see their brand is, but then more importantly, is what does their audience see it as? And so getting that data points on the audience and how the audience is already feeling with their branding, things like that, and things that their audience is interested in, those are the real exciting and cool things to add into the audio stuff and then the visual stuff as well. But it's funny, I take it for granted because I have, so many, I know different instruments and stuff. I could be like, oh, I hear like a djembe here or, koto there or something like that. And other people don't know what that is. Or I want a glockenspiel here. So colors are something that we all kind of know. So, for someone to say my brand like kind of sounds yellow, people are like, what does that mean? But for me, like I kind of get that because when I work with artists and stuff, a lot of the time these musical conversations involve things like that because there is no real musical dictionary, and the ones that there are very technical and I'm not classically trained. So I want something more blue that to me kind of seems a bit more sad and but also calming, or red is kind of more rock and roll in your face, or I want something thick, which is to me, a bit more bass and a bit beefier. I see a question there, Anna.
Yeah.
Had to unmute myself. I want to ask you, first of all, the process of working out what tune is actually matched or ideal for the person behind the company, because it's actually sort of twofold gathering of it. Can you show an example of something? Can you present an example of something you've created for someone that you just sort of present very loosely?
Yes. I'll have to send a link. The issue right now is I wasn't able to hook up my audio the way I wanted to for this presentation, and I was actually going to hook up into my board and stuff like that so I could show examples and kind of start something from scratch, which would have been cool. But because I'm not able to do that, after this, I'll send some links to some portfolio of some stuff I've done and whatnot. And some of the most exciting projects I've done, I'm actually just finished or I'm in the process of, and it's crazy because like some things will take a few weeks or a month, but then sometimes it's a year before it gets implemented or finally released and things like that. So I'm always playing that patient waiting game of like, come on, like get it out so I can share it with other people. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's just because I was actually curious on my own behalf, because I can't know what other people are thinking, because I'm a sort of mixture between very business-minded, very empathetic, but also very much into the rock world. So it's I would love to hear something very much. How do you get that into one tune?
Yeah, and honestly, like a really good thing to start with that I always tell people is references. This is what we all use in the music industry, and it's not like, as much as I love being able to play instruments, and again, as a multi-instrumentalist, like drumming and rhythm instruments are really my forte. I can play basic stuff on the guitar, the piano, enough to write, the basics of a song, but then I hand that off to the masters who are like session players and renowned, and that's all they do is play piano all day or play guitar all day. But it all starts with a reference. And this is the same thing if I'm working with an actual like singer-songwriter artist, or if I'm working with a company. And I say, go and find examples of other companies that have, implemented audio that you think you kind of like, or, maybe doesn't exactly represent you, but you like what they did there, or you like what they did at this point, and make like mental notes, write on a piece of paper, here's a video I found on YouTube of the company at 0:38 seconds in, there's this cool guitar sound. I really like that. How can we do something like that? And these little pieces now I start putting together, and I'm able to then present, a little bit of that, a little bit of this into that first kind of rendition. And it's a love it or hate it moment. Music is so subjective and so powerful that like sometimes it's good when someone's like, oh no, I hate that. Because then I know like, okay, well, I won't try that. That cuts out some stuff to try. Well, we know not to do that again. And then, well, but I did like a little bit of that. Okay, well, keep this in there. But to me, it's really not done till, someone's tearing up because they love it so much. Because that's really how music has to feel for someone. And it's, the creative process, there's really no one size fit all, black and white, fill out a questionnaire, here's your thing. It's more like, we got to get to know each other. We got to get deep. We got to get a little emotional. We got to try some things out, and then finally stumble across that aha moment of this feels right.
Cool. Mayank, you're on mute, Mike.
We have also, me and my brother, we also created the music for my second project. It's very gangster. It's like the night, when the G-Wagon goes with like coming out, so that kind of music, because the idea, the topic tunes in with that kind of music. And you're so right. Your personality has to go with the music. Like, for example, my music ends with an eagle's screech. Because the last thing an eagle wants is to have its dinner served to it on a silver platter. So you have to have that kind of attitude, right? So the podcast music ends with a screech, like a really scary one. So I don't know how many people will like it or not. But my question to you is, see, some of the music, they make you feel motivated. Some music, because we have like multiple emotions. So music actually influences emotions, right? Even if you're feeling down, a certain kind of song puts you in the right mood, right? So how do you, as a musician, like, it's so bonkers for me, like how do musicians, they really anticipate and they pre-design the music that will create or influence a specific emotion in a human being? Like, if you think about, I don't want to say the country because they're doing bad stuff these days, but Russian music is so goddamn gangster. You play the music and you feel like a warrior. But it's bad. It's just the way that they do the tuning and everything. So I'm going to ask you the question, how do you guys do it? How do you guys think as to what music will, influence happiness or sadness or motivation or inspiration?
That's a really good question. Thank you. So what it really boils down to, and for me, this is the most important thing, is transparency and honesty. You'll find a lot of, especially like really gangster music, it's really raw, man. And I grew up on hip hop. I love that. And you listen to like really gangster rap stuff, but even like the Russian stuff, it's even raw. And you even listen to what like in Mexico, the cartel listens to. It's like horn instrument, like, like almost jazzy or stuff that we listen to here. Yeah. But there's something that's so honest and raw about it that makes it, kind of badass, excuse my language. And so I really think that, that honesty and speaking from the heart is what really transcends well and what connects well with people. But to really evoke things, it gets like, we're talking like psychoacoustics now. There's like these little tricks you can do. So like major and minor keys is one of the perfect examples. Like major keys of like a G, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's gonna get the guitar.
So like, I don't know this tune, but like, that's like a D. That's kind of like a bit of a happier chord. But then you can start playing like, minor, more moodier chords. Make you feel something a bit different.
When you play the pop country music, all you can picture is like going in an open Mustang with a Dairy Queen ice cream and a white crow on the right side, and just going all the way to the backcountry road to Syracuse or something. So music definitely influences stuff. Like country music is all about the sunny day, a beer or ice cream or whatever, and beautiful scenery. So it helps, it's
and that really does speak to like what you said, like that pop country, that newer like stadium rock country, where what country again really was about was storytelling. It was about telling that story through music. And I think that's honestly what hip hop and country actually have so much in common, is the writing style is very similar in terms of like telling a deep story, where pop music is more about like verse one, we got to have some catchy words here. The chorus, this has to be something that people can sing along to now, and it becomes more of a formula. And that's why, to me, a lot of radio music that's like popular on the radio becomes kind of cookie cutter, doesn't evoke the same emotion that turning to the alternative channel or putting an old 70s song on or something a bit raw on will evoke. And that's because it's become a formula. Now people will look at what's doing really well, what's succeeding. Okay, it's using these chords, it's this speed, and then they'll just try to do something similar because they know it works. And that to me becomes more like just fabricating something, and it becomes more sterile and clinical and less raw and real and actually creating, as opposed to just kind of copying what works. And so I feel like businesses get in the same habit of, knowing they need a podcast or knowing they need music, but then they're just going through the motions of doing it because everyone else is doing it and not really doing it in a way that is true to them. And I always like to start at what's the goal. And so, yes, like the outcome is having music for your brand or custom audio, but the goal needs to be something deeper, like resonating this emotion to this audience because I want to give this message. Well, what is that message and why is that message important? And I was the worst kid ever because I was always asking why, to the point where I think like my parents didn't have Google back then either. So it'd be like, why is the sky blue? And they'd be like, oh, darn, like, I don't know actually, why is it? And then they're asking questions, and trying to figure this out. But I feel like that's so important, especially in a business, and especially, if you're working with someone, like me or someone doing video stuff, is to ask those whys. So why are we doing this? Why will this impact this? How can I do this in a way that is going to make me ask those questions? And so, yeah, I really boils down to just jumping in and experimenting, because you don't know what you don't know. And music, there's so vast and so many different styles and so many different things you can do with it, even outside of the musical realm. Now, like back to just the sound design and things like that, like having that ego screech at the end, like that's so powerful and engaging. But there's other things you can do to incorporate the sound of something. If you're selling cans of spray paint or something, having that sound and stuff in there invokes a feeling. If you're selling fishing equipment, you have that sound of the line plopping in there in the water and stuff like that. Like those little things instill this emotion. And I feel like the more senses you can stimulate, the more impactful a message will be. And so back to your question too, Mike, about how do we, almost seems like we control how someone feels. Well, it's about starting at relating to them at that level. And that's where music's so great, because there's movement in it. So you can catch someone if they're feeling kind of down at the beginning of a song, they're relating to that, but then the song's going to pick them up and the song gets a bit happier and lighter. And so that can kind of guide them through that. And also a person has to be receptive and open. There's sometimes, like, if you're in a really happy mood and someone puts a sad song, most of us want to turn it off, because if you let yourself listen to that, you're probably gonna be crying by the end of it, or thinking about something sad that happened last week or last year. Like, why am I doing this to myself? But to me, like, there's something so powerful about that. And I feel like some of the best music ever and some of the most music I like is super sad or depressing or like angry, but those feelings are so much more powerful sometimes and nice to feel. Where, like, to me, anytime I'm feeling happy or an artist is happy, the last thing they're like is, let's go sit in a room and try to write a song about this. It's like, let's go enjoy being happy while we do this.
Do you write or compose sad music when you're really sad, or can you control your emotions and be sad for a moment to make the tune and then be happy again, and vice versa? Do you really make happy music when you're happy? So it's so interesting. Like, I mean, how do you guys do it?
Yeah, for me, like, I used, like, when I first started out, I always would use almost as an excuse or rationale to be like, oh, I have to be inspired to create, and I put things off or procrastinate, like, well, I'm not feeling sad and inspired, so I can't go do the song. But now I've done this more professionally, now that I almost have to do this, it's like, there's something to be said about just getting into the process. And like you said, like, if you are, open-minded, you go into it, like, you got some self-control, then yes, like, absolutely. Like, I will think of something really sad or watch something sad or just start playing sad melodies, and I'll start feeling that. And I'll just embrace it for a bit and just, like, just use myself as that vessel to feel. But it is like being in tune with those emotions is so huge, but also being in control is important, because it can be, a depressing week if my whole week is working with all these songs that are all super, super sad stuff, but I really don't do a lot of happy songs. Like, not as most songs are like serious or emotional or like kind of sexy, like pop music and stuff is, or like, maybe the best is more like pump up, like, like, I'm the man, I got this, I got that, but nothing really seems like I'm so happy, big smile on my face. Like, there isn't really music.
I want one of those. Bernie's got a question for you there.
Yeah, Bernie.
Kenton. So when you're designing the beat or designing the music, does it matter where it's being played? Like, if you're going, if you're doing nightclubs, obviously the gangsta style oomph is, you're at a club, you're dancing, the beat goes that way. So do you gear it up for the context of where the end user is going to be? I mean, you as the person who's paying for the service and the design for the brand is one thing, but you're gearing it up for where your client is going to, or your audience is going to be, right? And so whether they're on the dance floor or they're driving in a car doing a podcast, right? Unless, of course, you want them to get a speeding ticket, you don't start playing them, a Bachman Turner, Overdrive song, right?
Yeah. No, actually, great question, because that actually is very important. Kind of ties back into, like, what's the goal with this, and then once we know that, we're going to find out where those end users usually are, because the engineering side of finishing the music, they're huge on this. And again, some of the magic makers, because they make something sound good on everything. And so, like, there's always going to be give and take. If you want something to sound really, really good on small headphones and on like off a phone speaker or laptop speakers, there's no real subwoofering that's going to give off much low end or bass. So taking that into account, when I'm producing something that's mostly going to be listened to on those, I'm going to use like higher pitched basses or like put more saturation distortion in the mid frequencies of the bass so that it translates well on those small speakers. But then if I play that same song that's translating and sounding super, super good on these small speakers now, and then play it on like a big booming system, it's going to sound thin or missing things or not as good. And so there's kind of give and take there. And so the real art, and I have had mixes back and some amazing engineers that can kind of make it sound good on almost anything. And that really is an art. But there are big things to take into consideration when doing it. And the other things are like very technical things about levels and balancing and loudness levels. And I don't know if you guys probably notice as listening to music as it progresses, things have gotten a heck of a lot louder. I always wonder too if people notice. I know as like I'm already noticing myself, but every year I feel a little bit deafer. So I wonder if it's like just matching or it's actually staying the same because everyone's getting deafer, but music is getting louder. So it's just kind of staying the same for everybody. But it is getting louder. And so these kind of loudness wars that has happened kind of set the standard now where everything kind of has to be a certain level or it's going to sound weak. If your podcast comes after someone else's and theirs is way louder than yours, they're going to be like, whoa, did they not get theirs done as professionally? Or like, why is that? And, you know, sometimes if yours next and then yours sounds even a bit better, well, they're going to be like, ooh, like what's this one? And so those little, again, kind of ties into psychoacoustics, these like psychology things that happen with the music and things like that. And the way we perceive things is so interesting and has such a big effect on, you know, what the end user is going to feel. And like you said, depending on what they listen to it on is going to be a big difference. Ideally, as a producer, I want everyone listening on really, really good headphones, on a really, really good sound system so they can hear all the attention and detail and work I put into it.
But
Because, you know, we'll listen to these big studios, be listening to every tiny little frequency, and then most people are listening to on one tiny little speaker and they're not going to notice the difference anyway. But, you know, there are those audiophiles and other people out there that are big into it and big listeners that do appreciate the really good quality. And I think that the average consumer, even though they may not know what they're appreciating, they notice when something's wrong. You know, there's a lot of really important details that need to come together for something to sound just right and average to them. But if one of those things is a little bit off, like there's a bit too much high end, they sound really effy or something like that. You know, you can notice sometimes they're really bassy and it's like, whoa, something just sounds a bit off here. Then it just kind of all goes to crap.
I'm going to just share a quick something when you're saying that, because for some of the people on this call, you know how we went wireless and all this stuff. I was telling Bertie the other day, we've got these huge speakers downstairs, really great stereo set, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm reliving my youth. We've moved them upstairs. We got tired of listening to Alexa and the little Google thing, and I'm going, why do we have all these great sounding speakers and everything in the house, and we are choosing to listen to a little box that costs $40, you know? So I totally get it, but it's interesting when you say that. I don't know if anybody else finds that. You have to, again, to think of your audience. Where are they listening from? Like, is it the car? Like, I mean, if you're talking, like, if it's a jingle on the radio, it's a car or Alexa or whatever, but how are they viewing it? So what do you think the majority, I'm just curious, what is the majority of people listening to or watching these days?
Like Apple AirPods are super big right now. Any sort of in-ear AirPods, like earbuds are really big. Again, like right off the phone, the laptop is like surprisingly really big. A lot of people just use their phone speaker or built-in laptop speaker. I like to believe that cars are still big because of radio and stuff like that. But again, that's mostly songs and music. I know a lot of people listen to podcasts in the car too, which is huge, but not many people are in their car when they're surfing through Instagram or TikTok or looking at videos like that, or even on YouTube, right? They're usually on their headphones or their phone. So that's kind of the majority now, which, you know, I don't necessarily love, because I sometimes wish I was in a different era when everyone did have like a big booming system. That was a cool thing, because it just made it funner when you mix the music for these big systems, where now it's kind of everyone, like you said, listens on a $40 speaker. Mind you, some of these speakers are really, really good. They do a really good job of it. And if you can get your song sounding good on a really small, crappy speaker, then like you're onto something as well.
Well, I actually, Jeff, I can't say I did. My husband hooked up Alexa to our stereo. So now we can talk to it and it's playing on the stereo. Like, I didn't know. I went, oh, that's cool. Okay. Anybody out there.
Margaret, don't tell Alexa everything. She knows more than you, know, like keep some secrets, you know, you never know. Mr. Bezos is going to hear everything. Yeah.
I unplug it before I have a good idea.
Okay. So, Anybody else got any other questions? I have another comment which I thought was interesting that you said when you said, "Hey, like if you're fishing in the plop," like now I'm thinking of the what do you call it? What do you call that thing that bounces up? The bobber. The bobber.
Oh, yeah.
I hear it plopping into the lake. Maybe with my yank, I hear the bells of the weights when they hit the metal when somebody's lifting something or whatever. I thought that was interesting, just opening up minds to people of possibilities and things that, I never would have thought of that. Actually, we got a question here from Yovette.
Yes, I'm listening carefully. I'm kind of forming my question here, but the way what I'm hearing is there is a kind of two different categories. One is about a branding, which is kind of repeatable, usually short jingle that resonates with your brand. Where the other one you mentioned also the marketing videos, which is really probably longer, needs to fit with video. So there's a lot about editing and also clearly about a message. And usually, you might have a different sound for each commercial or each marketing campaign. So I kind of always classify them as two different categories. You kind of, as you are talking about, you mix them a little bit here. So I just want to, first question is, do you see them very differently? Is the approach very different? And how, when it comes to the marketing, you see the flow is working with messaging, with the editing, if it's a video included. Are you part of the team in that case? Do you see a music first kind of set a mode and then everybody else follow? Or I see this a little bit different. I'm wondering if you can clarify that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, that's actually, I actually do see that's a good point. You picked up on that. I should have clarified a bit more. There is a clear distinction between, the jingle and the repeatable kind of, 30-second or 10-second thing that represents a brand, and then the more immersive, longer things. Now, when I first opened up and I was talking about the audio brand book, this is where I'll tie that all back in together. For me to serve the client the best, I love being involved in all of it and understanding what that messaging is and what they're trying to achieve and where they're going to need audio, because I like to have it all at once. So there'll be, for example, if you have the jingle or something you like, whatever instruments or style or progressions was used in that, something similar can be carried over for the other stuff that's going to be the background music behind the talking, or maybe the intro sound for a marketing video or things like that, because the cohesiveness between the sounds is so important. And obviously brands can't just repeat and use the same thing over and over again for their marketing videos, because it would get boring or redundant. So it's always cool to start with that 10-second intro that's consistent, but then depending on the video, branch off on that. Let that sound be fluid and be able to move and change depending on what the message or what the video is going to be, if that clarifies it anymore.
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you. Just the second part of the question was about process we took for the jingles from the intro for logo intro in the video or podcast, and I tried to actually work with somebody to come up with our own. Eventually, it looked like it's a lot of work, and it's hard to get a sense of output. And I think there's a lot of professions where you kind of need to sell something without really being able to quantify your work with the result that you will reveal at the later stage. And we were a bit of iffy if that will end up. We did go ahead. It was not as good, and we end up with choosing a jingle from Audio Jungle, which was bundled in with the licenses, no problem with the infringement, as well as with the thousands of options. It took a long time to kind of narrow it down, but it was a predictable process, and you kind of get a preview and you know what you're buying. And so I was just wondering your experience with the clients, how long that typically takes to create a unique branded jingle for a corporate customer, and how you can compete with something like Audio Jungle. So I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, no, really good question. And honestly, Yeah, and that's the most stressful thing for me every time I take on a project. So I get excited, but then there is that there's that uncertainty. Like you're tasked with, and the biggest thing too that I'll start off the bat with, and now I've learned my lessons is educating them first on expectations. Setting the expectations is very important, and then I'm usually able to. I have permissions from some of the bigger clients I've worked with that kind of have their stuff private. That when I have like someone in the lead, or I'm on a one-on-one, I can show more like legitimate work I've done and examples. But also, I also like to keep the power in like the client's hand, where like we'll discuss something, but then like I'll take a deposit and they hold the rest of the money ransom till they're happy. I don't work hourly because you never know. Something could take 2 hours, something could take 2 weeks. I always try to like around from ideation to at least like a demo final product around a month of back and forth. Sometimes that's been 2 weeks, sometimes that's been 6 months. There's a lot of variables that go into it. The biggest thing I just try to, get across and guarantee is that, I'm going to work till they're happy with it. And so what you just explained of what you did of going and finding that thing on the audio jingle or whatever it was, that actually becomes like my ideal client of someone that's gone through the process of knowing what they want and trying to get it. Maybe had some trouble, but then kind of found the next best thing, because that's the best reference for me. Finding something like that on one of those things is amazing, because then I can see what you liked about that, but then still customize it and change it so it's just yours. And then there's no licensing or anything like that, because I know in some of those it's all different, but I know there's fine print in some of them that like the licensing is only good for this. You have to renew the licensing, or someone can go and buy exclusives. Therefore, your license is no longer good. And there's a lot of what ifs there as well. So having the final product that's going to be exclusively theirs is the other big thing. But then, like you said, there's still that uncertainty and still that like leap of faith where you just kind of got to jump in. And instead of just hoping for the best, I just have those conversations like, look, if this takes us 6 months, it'll take me 6 months. This is still going to be the price, but I'm going to work till you're happy with it, type of thing. And I know not everyone has the patience or dexterity to want to do that or work like that. So that's kind of where I'm blessed and lucky is. I just absolutely love it and fine to just do that.
Perfect. I want to give one more idea for the business side. What I did about over 10 years ago. I was sitting in Montreal in a cafe, and there was somebody playing there, and I approached him. He was selling CDs. And I said, look, I have an idea. We're building the phone system. Do you want to record some of the music on hold? And we offered that to the clients. And then if there is anyone interested for a custom music on hold, we'll refer it. And he got about 4 or 5 different jobs through us. And it was kind of a creative way to market their music. And, whoever comes to call our customers, they end up listening. So that was a kind of a interesting way to, introduce them. So just idea for you in the case if you're looking at creative ways to, promote yourself, that might be one option, and certainly we can talk about it. It's a time for us to update the music on hold, so maybe we can have another set of music from you.
That's genius. I really like that. And actually something that I had in my notes a couple of years ago, because I was like, and I'll be real quick on this because I've talked about all the custom music and stuff from scratch this whole time. That's really what this has been about. But on my musical and record label side, there's a lot of artists that I work with that are a little bit more established or on the up and coming, and they have, a lot of great tracks on a whole catalog of music that can be used for businesses and things as well. And that kind of becomes that joint opportunity where an artist can get a bit of exposure, where, someone can have something kind of cool that's a bit different, unique, and stands out to their customers. And it's a win-win like that. So I'll definitely probably take you up on that. Appreciate the idea.
I'll send you a message with my contact.
Anything else, anybody? I think I'm getting to the end of my time here.
Yeah. We're just on the cusp of being done for the day. Actually, are there three essential points you want, or several points that you want to highlight that people should pay attention to when they're selecting music or beat with their brand?
Yes. So first one would be those references like I talked about. Compile like as many references as you can together. And then start looking at what's similar between the references, and like I said before, finding actual it's called time stamping. So whatever it is in the song, like put the exact time or whatever of what you like and why. Second one would be start making sounds yourself. I know not everyone's musical and not everyone needs to be musical, but I'm serious. Some of the coolest sounds that have been used in things have been like someone smacking something in the kitchen, or like filling a glass with water, getting a cool ding. Like some of the I often to this day you will find me in my kitchen or in my furnace room hitting different things with sticks and getting cool sounds. So starting to actually get in tune with making sounds and finding out what resonates in what way. And then third of all would be find someone that can help you start putting together demos and ideas, because a lot of stuff can be do it your own these days. And again, before even working with someone like me or doing something custom, it's like, it's good to know what you want, because then you're going to have the leverage. You're going to be able to fish out who actually knows what the heck they're talking about and who is just trying to grab money and whatnot. And you're going to be able to have reference points to make sure that you get the final product that's close to what you want to get.
Perfect.